works. Try to explain something I came up with. It's a little bit complicated. Many years ago, I was writing this book. Good characters, good plot, overall story. It was a science fiction novel. Had nothing better to do at the time, so. There was a couple pieces missing in the overall story, believability. And I figured out what it was: economics. What would people like in Star Wars, Star Trek use for a currency? You couldn't back it by just a metal. Well, at any rate, I rolled it around in my head for a while, and what I came up with seems almost doable. Kind of makes sense. The idea is a currency based on something called an ingot. I know this sounds silly, but the idea is that that's just essentially a room, a vault somewhere, and in it is basically 1 kilo of every naturally occurring element on the periodic table, from hydrogen right down to whatever the heaviest ones are that's naturally occurring. The ideal being, as industry uses more of one element, that element becomes more valuable. As we produce more of it, mine more of a particular element, then that becomes less valuable. Good example here: recently, price of gold jumped from like $300 something an ounce up to, what is it now, $2,000 an ounce? That sort of hammered the idea of the old gold standard. That didn't work. But if gold is only a small percentage of this ingot, then the overall impact on the value of the currency is small. Also, with a currency that is backed by something solid, tangible, then politicians and bankers can't play games with it. Recently, this president we got devalued our currency by 28% by just producing a whole bunch more of it and putting it out there. That basically stole about 1/4 of everybody's retirement fund and savings account and all that. Now, we know from history, when governments overproduce a currency and its value drops, the people on the bottom suffer. The Treaty of Versailles, where the Germans were forced to sign a treaty to give Britain and France, 39 billion Deutschmarks or something like that. There wasn't that many Deutschmarks on the damn planet, so their answer was just to print the damn things up and give them to them. And the value of their currency became almost zero. You might have heard of it or seen it yourself, the old videos, people actually rolling wheelbarrows full of money down to the store to buy a little bit of groceries. When their economy collapsed, that's when foreigners came in and bought up everything for pennies on the dollar and set the foundation for the next big-ass war, the real big one. Anyway, part of the concept of the ingot is anyone that has the means to do so can produce one. Corporations, government, wealthy individuals. If you can acquire essentially 1 kilo of every element on the periodic table and put it in a secure vault, then different government agencies, whatever, verifying that it's in there, to where anyone with a camera that wants to go look and verify that it's there can do so. It'd be easy enough to do that, and then you would issue a currency, pretty much say on the paper note or on the bill, ingot number so and so, okay, and it's 1/1 billionth of the ingot. Break it down to a buck, or hell, I don't know what the actual value would be, but that would make sense. And with lots of people, companies, corporations, governments, wealthy individuals like those Arabs that have massive amounts of money, if they produce a whole ingot and prove its existence and register it, then they can issue currency from it. And a currency backed by an ingot is backed by something tangible. This value will not dramatically fluctuate. That makes sense in a lot of ways. Other part that I was thinking about, you would want, if you owned an ingot, if you had a corporation and you'd managed to assemble a couple to where you could produce a note backed by those things, you'd want people to believe it real, to prove it. Otherwise, currency backed by ingot number so-and-so might have a bad reputation, might be questionable, so people would shy away from the use of that particular note and buy one backed by a different ingot. I don't know. You get the idea. That would produce a stable currency. But of course the people in power would not give up that power. The banks would never go for it. They like to play with values and monies to make themselves rich and stay important and stay on top. The way it's always been throughout history. Just thought I'd explain that concept. It seems cool. There's obviously problems with it, but it would be workable. Right now the American dollar is backed by nothing except people's willingness to trade their goods and or services for it. And that seems to be diminishing.